It's been several days now that I've been saying that Charlie Kirk was shot from behind and nobody can prove me wrong. I guess people thought that was some sort of, boast, some sort of thing that I just came up with and started saying, because there have been some people who have been, pretty irritated by that. It's weird. It started out as a hypothesis, but at this point, I have to say, I think it has become a thesis. And it's helpful to think about it like that. I put up this tweet here on X. People can follow me on X if you're not on there, at JG_CSTT. I'm super shadow banned. But basically, a hypothesis, it's a testable proposition or an educated guess about how something works that's used mainly in scientific or investigative contexts to predict outcomes that can be confirmed or disproved by evidence. And a thesis is a statement or central argument that you intend to prove or defend through reasoning, research, and analysis, and it's used in academic writing like essays or dissertations. And so, people can read that tweet and think about the differences between a hypothesis or a thesis, but this has become a thesis because I can defend it. A lot of people have been contacting me, whether it's on my main X account or this backup account that's not yet shadow banned at Jason Goodman NYC. People have been contacting me, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of positive feedback. Many people have seen my interview on Redacted with Clayton Morris, and thanks again to Clayton for having me on there. I'm glad to get this information out. I want people to hear it. The reason I'm doing this is that I just don't think American citizens should be shot and murdered in the middle of a college courtyard while they're having a conversation, whoever did it. And by the way, let's start there. I don't know who did it. A lot of people want to get me into these X spaces where they say, Jason's a Jew, so let's talk about how Israel did it. I don't know if they did or didn't. Obviously, Candace Owens has now presented these text messages, seem pretty damning, look pretty authentic, but again, even if they are 100% authentic and as bad as they seem, it's not proof of murder. It's proof that there was some disagreement and strife, and maybe even about to be a big disagreement there. But people are jumping to conclusions that I don't agree with. And then on the other side of that, oh my goodness, look at this little tiny dog. Very cute. Anyway, people are jumping to these conclusions that I don't agree with. And then on the other side of that are people who are attacking my thesis, mostly with stupidity. A lot of people have also heard that I've put up this evidence bounty. It's a sort of a challenge. I've mentioned, I'm offering money. I've created a research fund. I put in $1,000 of my own money, and Crowdsource the Truth viewers have chosen to up the bounty to $1,770. You've got to be subscribed to Crowdsource the Truth to qualify to receive this bounty to even get into the debate. That's the one caveat. And anybody who wants to motivate other people, researchers, journalists, whatever it might be, read these terms and conditions, and when you choose to add to the bounty, either with your credit card or cryptocurrency, you're agreeing to these terms. By the way, engaging in the debate with me at all, you agree to these terms. I'm getting a lot of anonymous idiots who show up on Twitter and say, I've proven you wrong because the microphone exploded, give me the $100. That's not how it works. This is a serious endeavor. And certain people, there's this one guy, I don't even remember his name, he's not worth mentioning. I've got him pictured here. We're going to talk about two idiots today. We've got idiot number one, who's this dope, Jeremy the Quartering, and this other dope, whose name I don't remember, who is anonymous mostly. He just appeared out of nowhere the other day, produced some video with pretty poor quality Blender animation or some kind of 3D animation that's based on a presumption about my thesis that is incorrect to begin with, and doesn't disprove the fundamental aspects of the thesis, which are that a projectile is seen A high contrast white dot is what it appears to be, or lightly colored dot against a dark background in the video, 3 frames that I'm saying had to be photographed at 240 frames per second, moving at a speed close to 500 feet per second. And we've got these 3, I say, sequential frames followed by a fatal injury to Charlie Kirk that I say goes from the back of his neck through his brain, some portion of his brain that results in what Dr. Chris Martenson said, I think decorticate posture, where there's some sort of motor reaction that he says, I don't know, I'm not a doctor. He's a neurotoxicity something or other. And he, I believe, said he spoke to neurosurgeons who told him that that particular posture is indicative of an immediate severe brain trauma. So I'm saying a projectile penetrated the back of his head, right where his brain is. And the first thing it did was injure the brain, causing that posture. Penetrated the muscles and tendons and the whatever is in his neck, expended all its kinetic energy going through his neck, got caught in the shirt collar, and either stretched out the shirt collar and continued onward or fell down into the shirt. But something stretched out the shirt. And it's not a microphone exploding, that's motion blur that we're seeing, because if it were an explosion, we should see it from other angles. There's only one angle provided by professional idiot Blake Bednards, who I believe broke the law. I haven't proven that, but it looks to me, based on reading statutes and observing what he's said that he's done, it seems like the way he obtained that video was a violation of law. Now, I got a letter, an email yesterday from the Utah Valley University Records Department saying, hey, we're in receipt of your GRAMA, your Government Records Access, whatever that stands for. It's like FOIA, but on the state level in Utah. They've received it, and they said due to the overwhelming, they cited something in the statute that says when there's an unusual condition, like an emergency like this, they can extend the time to answer. So they said they're invoking that, and that gives them 15 days to respond. So that means in 2 weeks, they will respond, and they'll either say, okay, here is the video that I allege Blake obtained illegally, or they'll say, no, we're not going to give you the video, and then they'll give some reason as to why not. And I'll be able to appeal that through GRAMA. So there are other videos that I asked for, and people know Ken Silva, the editor of HeadlineUSA.com. He does fantastic pro se legal work. I really enjoy working with Ken and reading his reports on his @JD Cashless, JD_Cashless, I believe, on X, and also at HeadlineUSA.com. He filed a GRAMA request as well for security camera footage. I did that too, and they said no, flat out, we're not giving you the security camera footage, which I anticipated actually when I read the law, because there's different laws that apply to security camera footage than the laws that apply to this footage that was specifically recorded to be broadcast on YouTube. They've said, we need to think about that, the YouTube one. And the reason why I should have access to that is, that's already been released to the public. It was obscured to comply with the rules of YouTube, but when I say, look, I want to use that already public video for forensic analysis, and I don't have any terms of service as far as not showing people getting shot, so give me the full video so I can forensically analyze it, I think they're going to have a hard time saying no to that. Which is why I was so upset that Blake Bednarz potentially did something illegal to get it and release it, because lawyers who don't really know me apart from watching YouTube and X, and in some cases maybe sponsoring the show on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com or subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, lawyers who read what I wrote said, you're right, this guy's an idiot because he's destroyed the evidentiary value by, kind of getting that video and releasing it. So now the defense can say, well, this video no longer has any evidentiary value, we can't use it, or I don't know, but they said it's not the right way to do it. And Blake is an opportunistic idiot at best, and a deliberate evidence saboteur at worst, which is why I put out that article on X saying he should be prosecuted for that. Not only because he's trying to mislead people about things that I'm reporting on, drones and whatever, he seems like a troublemaker, a George Webb-style misdirector, and he's not an honest guy. Anyway, back to the idiot Jeremy, the quartering. So I've put out this challenge, and here's the thing. If people don't like me, if people don't like my conclusion, if people don't like the challenge, they don't have to watch. I always use this analogy. It's like if I open a restaurant, you don't have to come to the restaurant. If you come to the restaurant, you can leave a bad review. You can tell people, I don't like it. You're free to whatever, civilized means, tell people, you go out with a friend, I ate there, I didn't like it. You could write a whole news article about how terrible it is. But what crosses the line is coming into my restaurant and vocally running around in the room telling people, Jason is this, Jason is that, the food is bad, get out of here, leave. I can kick you out of the restaurant. I'm not taking away your rights to eat in restaurants. You can go to other restaurants, you just can't come to mine. I'm not going to allow you to sit in the restaurant and sabotage the business. Likewise, if you're going to stand outside and tell people don't go in there, I'm going to exercise my legal rights to get you to go away and not do that. So remember, we saw little idiot number 2 on Jeremy's shoulder. That's essentially what that guy's doing. He did not go to crowdsourcethetruth.org and read the terms of service and become a sponsor on one of the qualifying channels. By the way, your money will come back to you if you receive this payout from the bounty, but you've got to be registered on Patreon, Subscribestar, Substack, or X Premium, because I'm offering to pay over $1,000. This is going to be a business transaction, and I'm not going to do that with an anonymous, unknown internet troll. It's going to be as if you're buying a car from me, or I'm, selling a car to you. We have to know who each other are, because I'm going to transact business. This is not a wager. This is not a sweepstakes. It's not a game of chance. This is an offer. I'm offering to buy information for a news publication, but it's got to be good. So this is how, it's like a job interview, essentially. So if you're unwilling to tell me exactly who you are, and you're unwilling to participate by the terms that I've laid out, no one is forcing you to participate. This little idiot on the shoulder of Jeremy was peppering me with crap on X, saying, oh, Jason's a gatekeeper. He's not even giving out the Adam Bartholomew 8 gigabyte video. Now, this idiot with the Blender animation, little idiot on the shoulder, he's trying to disprove the bullet hitting Charlie Kirk in the back of the head theory. That has nothing at all to do with Adam Bartholomew's video. And by the way, Adam Bartholomew has made his video available on his Life is Driving YouTube channel. He's got the hour and 9-minute version. It's true, I have an 8 gigabyte version of that video, but guess what, anonymous idiots out there in the world? I'm not in the business of distributing 8 gigabyte files to every unknown moron who wants it just because they want it. And I'm not a gatekeeper. It's Adam's file, he has it. Anybody can contact him on X at Life is Driving, ask him for the 8 gigabyte file. He's given it to me, he's given it to Blake, it's out there in the world. I'm not gatekeeping anything, but it takes time and it occupies my resources to send these files to people. So if you're going to be an objectionable asshole, why should I engage with you at all? And speaking of objectionable assholes, let's talk about Jeremy the quartering, because I don't know who this guy is other than a fat slob who sits in front of his computer talking about Magic the Gathering. And I mean, the last time I saw that guy, I believe he was, hanging on every word of Amber Heard taking a dump in Johnny Depp's bed. So obviously he's at the height of journalism and research, and he must be a genius, because I can't imagine tackling a topic like that. But anyway, when the interview came out on Redacted, this guy, Jeremy, he released this X post where he's saying, of course, this is not irrefutable proof. I will 100% debate this individual. You're claiming he was shot by an air rifle, and then that the gunshot we all heard was just what? A totally perfectly random gunshot? No, he obviously hasn't watched it. He's calling me a nut job, right? This was October 4th, so days ago, 1 in the morning, what was that, Friday night, Saturday night? And this person said, oh, he's offering $100 to anyone, and he says, I accept. So right away, I responded on October 4th saying the bounty is increased to $1,000. Send me a DM, and let's schedule the debate. And by the way, that's not the only time I asked him, he's engaging with me. I didn't go to his website and say, hey, you should participate in this $1,000 challenge. He said for $100, he 100% accepts, and he's excited to debate me. So fine, send me a DM. The DMs are open. But he didn't do that. And by the way, there's a lot of communications with this fat idiot. I didn't even capture them all here, but just to let everybody see, he said again, this was yesterday or something, yes, I'll happily talk, which I said pretty offline over the weekend. I don't think that's true. I saw him tweeting. So he says, email me to set it up. Here I'm telling him, this time yesterday, you claimed to accept the offer to debate me the other day, and now you failed to respond to multiple requests to arrange the debate. Let's do it, Jeremy. Charlie Kirk was shot from behind, and nobody can prove me wrong. So he insists right there that I email him. Okay, so now again, he's putting provisos on his 100%. I don't operate by his terms. I can do whatever I want. So I could tell, or at least let me speak specifically. I got the sense that he wasn't being sincere in his statement that he was ready to debate me, because he continued to issue insulting public tweets on his very large, I think he has 400,000 people looking at his idiotic Amber Heard turd reporting. And so he kept insulting me, insulting the research, saying all kinds of disparaging things. I'm saying, hey, let's, DM me, let's do this. Some other idiot, the Gator Gar, who seemed to know him or something, I don't know, said, oh, I want to debate you too. I said, fine, we could do both of you guys versus me on Jeremy's stupid show, or whatever you want. And the Gator Gar didn't answer, and I was just like, look, you guys are both just publicly insulting me, not responding. So I got the sense that he was basically just razzing me. He's like up there throwing meat to his Amber Heard turd lovers. So I didn't want to email him, and I didn't immediately find his email address. He didn't have his website on his X account. He got upset that I didn't specifically Google the quartering email and get it right away. That's not the way that I do research. I'm under no obligation to do things in accordance with how he predicts I should do things. And I won't say exactly how, but through public records and anything that any person with a brain could access, I found information that led me to a phone number that I presumed was his. See, here's the wrinkle that I haven't revealed yet. It seems to me, and I can't prove this, but I've looked at a lot of these records, and I know how a lot of these fat morons on the internet work. It seems to me that this guy is doing his own version of fat dumb guy OPSEC, where he doesn't want people to find him because he's such a secretive internet troll, and he's kind of like conflated his identity with his wife's identity, I guess. I can't prove that. That's a presumption based on the evidence that I've seen in these public databases, because a phone number that it turns out was his wife's cell phone is associated with the records of his home address. I don't know how that happened. I thought I was calling him. But let's listen to the phone call because it's quite interesting.
Hello?
Hi, can I speak to Jeremy, please?
Can I ask who's calling?
Yeah, it's Jason Goodman.
Hold on for 1 second.
Thanks.
Jeremy? Jeremy?
Hello?
Jeremy,
Yeah.
how you doing, man?
Good.
What time tonight do you want to do this debate?
Why are you calling my wife's cell phone?
Oh, I thought this was your number. I just got it off the internet, and you said, email me, but I don't have your email address, so I went looking for it, and I found this number. What time should we do the
Okay.
debate, and how do I get onto your
You can email me like I told you to at thequartering@gmail.com.
I don't have your email address.
I just told you, thequartering@gmail.
Okay. I mean, I don't know how you thought I had that before.
Anybody can find it, bud. Talk to you later.
Okay, thanks. Now, he's been all bent out of shape. He's saying that I harassed his wife. I thought I was pretty polite. I said hello, please, and thank you. She didn't seem to express any irritation in particular at being called. And when I asked to speak to him, she connected me to him. Additionally, why didn't he just say, well, now that we're on the phone, let's just schedule it for 8 o'clock tonight, or I can't do it until Wednesday, or whatever. He was obviously trying to avoid actually having the debate and begging for something to get upset about. So I'll be honest, I anticipated that, and that's why I called him rather than emailing him, in addition to the fact that I'm under no obligation to play by his rules. He's accepting a challenge that I have offered. See, this is like when I have a restaurant and I come in there and I say there's chicken parmesan on the menu. If you come in there, there's reasonable ways, you know. You say, hey, I have a lactose intolerance. Can I just get a chicken cutlet with tomato sauce on it? I think most places will accommodate that. But if you start saying, actually, can it be veal Milanese instead? It's like, no, I don't have veal. That's not on the menu. You're not coming in here and telling me what to cook. Either you want what's on the menu or you don't. And get out if you don't want it. I actually appreciate those restaurants where they refuse to change anything, because then the problem becomes the restaurant right away knows they're dealing with someone who's a pain in the ass. And if you order something and change it around and then say, oh, I didn't like that, it's like, well, that's not what we intended to give you. So if you don't like it, that's your fault. My point is, he wants to now set the terms, and that's not how this works. The terms are laid out. I spent a lot of time writing these terms. And it's meant to be a binding legal agreement between me and anyone who chooses to enter into these terms. If you don't like the terms, you don't have to enter. Nobody is forcing you to do it. But if you want to take up this challenge and qualify to either receive this $1,770 payment, or conversely, if you'd like to increase that payment, to increase the incentive for someone to challenge me, you agree to these terms. It's not about calling me up and negotiating the terms, because they're not negotiable. Now again, that's not to say, if someone says, hey, I read it, and there's something in it that doesn't make sense, could you clarify this? I'm not saying it's impossible for a person to bring something to my attention that might cause me to alter those terms if it makes sense. Just like leaving off the cheese, or maybe I don't want spaghetti, can I get salad? Something like that might be reasonable. But if you want to come in here and order veal Milanese, get the fuck out. It's not on the menu. Point is, this idiot with the animation is telling me, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that. I don't have to do a damn thing. You can piss right off if you don't like what I do. But if you want to be in public telling me I'm crazy and my idea is stupid and you want to debate me, don't avoid responding to me saying, sure, let's debate. See, and it's interesting. This is part of the reason why I'm now saying this is no longer a hypothesis. This is a thesis. Because it's become clear that for several days, I've been talking about this initially hypothesis. Many people, by the way, police investigators, Navy investigators, ballistics experts, lots of people have looked at this and said, you know what? Not only is this the most sensible thing I've heard, this is the only thing that anybody is saying that remotely makes any sense. So there's a lot of people who think that this is very, very close to correct. And then there's other people who disparage it but are unwilling. I'm not even asking people who want to challenge me, you don't have to put up a dime, sorry, $5 to just, it's a registration process. Okay? I mean, if you wanted to send away, let's say I had a job offer, but I was only accepting offers by certified mail, you're not willing to pay the $8 to send in the application? I'm just saying, this is a certification process. You become a registered member, a sponsor of Crowdsource the Truth for $5 between now and November 4th. And by the way, if you receive the payment, the $5 will be refunded to you in addition to the payment amount. So it'll be $1,775 or more if people choose to goose that bounty to incentivize people to prove me wrong. And it's, again, it's not a braggadocious, oh, prove me wrong. It's, I think this is correct. And if someone can fundamentally disprove it, we're going to learn something, and that's worth money to me. If you fundamentally disprove it and give me a better thesis, it's going to get integrated into the reporting, and that's going to be, you know, this is how crowdsource the truth works. I'm not just some idiot who says, oh, Charlie Kirk isn't dead. Look, while I'm willing to concede that that could be a possibility, given that everybody saw him bleeding a lot on video, I think it's a pretty extraordinary claim to say that he's still alive. He went into that decorticate posture. He fell off of the chair from a platform, which I don't think you could really easily do as like an acting move. You'd be hurt if you tried to do that. And it was pretty immediately in response to what looked like him getting shot in the neck and a geyser of blood coming out. So, you know, the notion that he's somehow still alive, that's a pretty extraordinary claim, and you're going to need extraordinary evidence. There's an additional group of idiots who are just posting that on X. He's still alive. You're not proving me wrong by saying that. You now have to attack this thesis, and I'm going to defend it. So somebody said, I think it was Gary from Mini Mount Tactical, he said, ask this genius why the dots don't line up. Here's why the dots don't line up. Because I've already said the dots in the composite image, they are derived, and we can see that image right here. Those 3 dots are derived from 3 separate images. 2 come from the 20 frames per second video that first emerged when Zeb Boykin went on to Owen Schroyer's show. And Owen and I simultaneously, I was watching, Owen was hosting, simultaneously we noticed, wow, that is the best quality video of this incident that I've seen so far. And Zeb was the first guy to have it as far as I know. He doesn't remember who sent it to him, but that video he shared with me, Zeb shared it with me after that appearance on Owen Schroyer. And when I interrogated the file, I realized it was 20 frames per second, which was super unusual to me. And then I started talking about it with Zeb on some live streams that we did, and then mysteriously a 30 frame per second version of that file appeared. And that's where the third image of the projectile came from. Because remember, if one is 20 frames and one is 30 frames, this is part of how I scientifically arrived at the determination that it must have come from a 240 frame per second file. This is almost like video algebra. Because I could look at the 2 video files and say, well, they aren't really exhibiting any characteristics of a video with improperly formatted motion characteristics from a bizarre frame derivation. You got no courtesy for anybody at all. Fuck you, asshole. Shut up, I wish I had a bat. Video algebra, I determined that they must have come from an original that was both evenly divisible by 20 and 30, because otherwise we would have unusual motion in one video or the other. And so that could be a 60 frame per second video, a 120 frame per second video, or a 240 frame per second video. And we also discussed how getting a 20 frame per second video from a 240 frame per second video would entail taking 1 out of every 12 frames. Dividing the 240 frame video by 12 gets us to 20. And likewise, a 30 frame per second video could be derived from the same 240 frame source by taking 1 out of every 8 frames per second, and we're going to get different frames. The issue, however, was the 30 frame per second video was encoded at a much lower bit rate. And what I mean by that is less data, same length of video, but a smaller file. And you've seen that when you look around on the internet. The video gets blurrier and smushier, and it doesn't look as sharp and clear. So what happens then is the dots appear in different sizes in the different videos, and this makes aligning them perfectly difficult or perhaps not possible. Additionally, this whole original video was shot by somebody just holding up an iPhone. So even a slight tilt of their hand, which could occur in 1/240th of a second. A tilt gets exaggerated over a long distance. You know, 1 degree or a portion of a degree could be 1 pixel up or down, 5 pixels up or down of a small dot like that on screen. So the two problems that result in the dots not being perfectly aligned in a straight line is that they are derived from two different videos of different bit rates and essentially different resolutions. And I can't stabilize those two videos because, I mean, I could, I guess, but it can't easily be done. And the point is, the way to actually prove or disprove this is to get to that 240 frame per second original file. Now, I tried to do that. People saw all that business with our friend Samir Masi. And again, although I did not prove that the video originated as a 240 frame file, it was interesting to observe Samir's reaction to the request, particularly in contrast to the reaction from Adam Bartholomew, who just right away provided the video, nothing weird about it, good explanation for why the live stream cut out, and he had this 8 gigabyte video. Everything that Adam said checks out. It was easy to locate Adam using the same sort of tools that I used to locate Jeremy and his phone number or his wife's phone number. But Adam Bartholomew wasn't doing any fat guy OPSEC. Samir Masi is doing even more sophisticated OPSEC than our fat buddy Jeremy. Samir Masi, you can't find an address for him anywhere in Utah or the United States. No one matching that name and that age. He was using a voice over IP phone number. I should have asked her what she thought of the assassination. And that's, again, OPSEC, operational security. People who don't want you to be able to find them over the internet do things like that. So it's interesting to note that Samir Masi doesn't want to be found on the internet, wants $250 for a video that he doesn't have or doesn't want to give me, that he claims he shot, but it would be the only horizontal video we've ever seen him shoot out of the dozens or maybe hundreds of videos that he has on TikTok and Facebook. And it would appear that he was inside that building, unaware that Charlie Kirk had been shot. His own video, he expresses surprise when someone tells him there's been a shooting. So it doesn't seem consistent with him having shot that video, and it puts a lot more questions on that video. Until we get the original file, I don't know. This is the hypothesis. To disprove it, someone would have to come forward and say, hey, it was me who shot that video. Here's the file from my phone. You can see the date. See, everybody knows. You can't mess around like that in New York. Keep the bikes off the sidewalk, follow the lights. My point is, if somebody came forward and they were saying, yeah, sure, I'll send you the properties inspector window that shows that this was recorded on my phone at 12:22 p.m. local time, and it's recorded at the native data rate of an iPhone, and here it is at whatever frame rate it's at. That could prove or disprove what I'm saying. But so far, nobody's doing that. And there's a lot of intrigue surrounding it. So again, nobody has disproven that. You can't come with a stupid Blender animation or say, hey, there's a supersonic event over here somewhere that maybe is doing I don't know what. How do you explain these dots? And I've just explained why they aren't perfectly lined up. I've also explained why. So John Cullen very early on, and has repeated many times, I don't know why he hasn't called me to gain an understanding of this, but he says, no, this can't be right because it looks like the dot is moving away from him. Now I acknowledge in the 20 frame per second file that we have, we see the acute disturbance of Charlie's shirt, which seems to be event 4, simultaneous with event 1. And it doesn't make sense on its face. Now my original explanation for that was that I believe it's an MPEG encoding error, meaning something's moving very fast, a white dot against a dark background. Whoosh. The video encoder, the way it works, it can become confused about where that particular set of pixels is relative to everything else in the frame, and it can render it incorrectly. I've seen that happen. I'll find some other examples of that and demonstrate it for people in the future, so I'm confident that that will happen. I did have a conversation with an MPEG software engineer who said that no, he doesn't think that that could happen because that's not the way that the encoding and decoding process works. I'm not sure that he understood what I was explaining, and remember, when you're talking to an engineer, I mean, this is like if you met Ferry Porsche when he was 90 and told them, hey, I was driving in a 1978 911 whatever, and in second gear it does this. And he said, no, that's not possible because second gear is designed like this and it works like that. It's like, I get what it's supposed to do, but I'm telling you, I'm driving the car and this is what it's doing. So this concept that an engineer might refuse to acknowledge that something could happen, it doesn't even matter, because let's say I'm wrong. Let's say it's not an MPEG encoding error. We've got a lot of good evidence that somewhere there's a source file that's been modified, 20 frames, 30 frames. And the other thing this engineer asked me was, well, why would someone do that? That's another thing I find engineers doing all the time. They say, well, why would you want that? I did it this way because I figured, why would anybody want that? It's like, no, I told you, no set screws in this camera. Don't ask me why I want it, just design it the way I've told you. I don't like it when engineers ask why, just follow the spec. I don't know why in this case. I can't get into the why. I tried to ask Samir Masi and he refused to answer. He might know why. We could speculate. I presume this video was monkeyed around with because somebody is motivated to fool us about what actually happened. So let's operate on that speculation for a moment. If somebody wanted to fool us and they have this video on a computer in such a way that they can release it at 20 frames per second or 30 frames per second or whatever derivation of 240 frames per second they want, couldn't that someone also, through a sophisticated process, combine 2 frames to specifically fool people? I mean, the answer is yes. You could. You could deliberately put the frames out of order or combine frames. And then someone might say, well, maybe they put all those dots there in the first place. Maybe they did. But why would they do that? Again, I think this is an MPEG encoding error, because what I've just described would be very complicated. And yes, if they were going to do that, why not just erase the dot completely? So I think that engineer is incorrect. We're going to have to find some ways to demonstrate, to further defend this thesis. Okay? So there's a lot of, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to say about this. Right. So the other thing that Jeremy said was, oh, haha, you think he was shot with an air gun? Well, yes. And I didn't just pop out with, he's still alive. What's your evidence? I just think that. No, I'm saying that we know that the concept that someone has a 240 frame per second camera in their pocket, it's actually extremely likely. Anyone who has an iPhone going back to 10 or 11, it can record 240 frames per second if you set it that way. And certainly anyone who is involved in video production who specifically gets a model of iPhone that can do that, it's not uncommon at all. It's very, very likely that someone at that event would have or could have easily obtained an iPhone to shoot 240 frames per second HD. And I've looked at an awful lot of iPhone video. There are other things in that image. It has the characteristics of an iPhone. The way it renders light blooming on highlights and things like that, it looks like an iPhone to me. So I'm presuming it was shot at 240 frames per second for all these reasons that I've laid out. If it was, getting 3 images of a projectile moving an equal amount of distance every 1/240th of a second means it would be moving at approximately 500 feet per second. That's math. So then I started looking around for, well, let's see, what can fire a projectile at 500 feet per second? And I found this. This is a very dangerous looking bin-tack M50 pistol. 45 caliber, 50 caliber. They make a lot of different versions of it. And this is a pre-charged pneumatic gun, sometimes referred to as an air gun. It's not a Daisy BB gun that you pump up and fire at your sister's ass. Nobody should do that. But I'm saying it's not like that. It's not an airsoft pistol. This is a hunting weapon, a dangerous gun. Now, I've been saying that it was the M50, but of course I don't have direct evidence that it was the M50. However, since then, I've learned there is a whole entire category of 50 caliber air rifles. And by the way, it might be 45 caliber, it might be 38, I don't know, name the different calibers. I'm not a bullet expert, but When I started with a smaller projectile and a lower speed, people seem to think it wouldn't have the kinetic force to even penetrate. What I'm saying is, we got a lot of sophisticated weapons here that can fire projectiles at 500 feet per second, 700 feet per second. They got Picatinny rails, you can put laser sights on them. These are serious weapons. And maybe it's far away shooting 700 feet per second. By the time it reaches right behind his head, it's going 500 feet per second. Firearms experts will know more about how much things slow down as they fire through the air than I do. I'm just saying for that 10, 12, 20 feet behind Charlie Kirk, we see 3 images of a projectile, a lot of evidence that it was photographed at 240 frames per second. All of that is possible, plausible, probable, and this is what it adds up to. So again, this is a scientifically derived thesis that I am now defending. And if you aren't an idiot or a jackass, you can go to crowdsourcethetruth.org and you can participate in an official competition where the winner will be someone who provides superior research, and the bounty paid for that research for qualified individuals who are registered on one of those 4 websites currently is at $1,770. If you like what I'm saying and you want to incentivize other people and you're over 18 and you read these terms of service and agree to them, you can go down to the bottom of the webpage and either with a cryptocurrency of your choice or your credit card, you can add any amount of money to this bounty. The purpose of adding money to the bounty is to incentivize other people to come forward with better research. And so people say, oh, well, Jason, who decides if it's better research? The answer is I do. And so if you think that I'm not trustworthy, if you think that I'm not going to say, oh, well, that's much better research than mine, and just keep the money, then you shouldn't participate. But if over the 9 years that I've been doing this, and even if you've only been watching for a few days, if you observe that you think that I'm a person who speaks sensibly and wants to maintain my public integrity rather than flush it down the toilet for $1,700, then I'm asking you to trust in the product. It's like anything. You get on an airplane, you trust that the pilot knows how to fly it. There's a certain amount of trust you need to put in someone. Now, if I was doing things like saying every dot in the sky was a drone, oh, and that brings me to another rambunctious asshole who wants to razz me. So somebody who's using an anonymous account and said, hey, I'm a Patreon sponsor or whatever, which, by the way, is not a $5 license to be an asshole to me. I appreciate the people who sponsor the show, but just saying I'm a sponsor, so now I'm going to give you shit over DM, that's not how that works. Anyway, this guy put out a video with a dot saying, oh, look, I found another drone. So I went and found the highest resolution version of the video that person put a stepped-on version on Twitter. And for that, I just went to TikTok and downloaded it. I did contact the person who shot the video, but they didn't get back to me. But even the TikTok video was higher resolution and better than the video this person had used on X, and I put it through my process. I tracked the dot, I magnified the dot, and it looked like a bird to me. And I said, look, this is not a drone. And I put in a snarky comment. I said, hey, drone spotting is the sport of kings. This is an insect or a bird or whatever I said. So the person was insulted, and they came back days later, and this was valid input to some extent. They said, hey, speaking of the sport of kings, that Bluetooth low energy exploit that you're talking about that was identified by Oligo IT security, the airborne exploit, that was patched in May. And I don't know why I thought it hadn't been patched. I had seen some article when I first started talking about it that said that it wasn't patched, but sure enough, I did find articles now that said that it was patched in May. And so I correct that statement. That specific exploit had been patched, but here's the important difference. Just saying that a dot is a drone, that's completely incorrect. And there's no way to change a bird into a drone. So when you come out with the definitive statement that I've spotted a drone in this video and there is no drone there, there is no way for that to be correct. While it's true, or it may be true, that the specific, there are a load of conditions where we don't know if Adam Bartholomew had updated his software. It's likely that he did. But what's more likely is someone said, man, that whole zero-click remote code executable exploit, that's so appealing. Even though Apple stitched up the hole that allowed us to get in, let's find another way in. And it's possible that someone found a different exploit that achieves the same thing. So it doesn't change my hypothesis substantially. It causes me to sharpen the explanation by saying, okay, it wasn't specifically the Oligo IT security identified airborne exploit, but it does appear possible. And I even said this in the beginning, to tell you the truth, that even if it wasn't that, it seems likely that the US Army knows about exploits. I said, this is just an exposed zero-day exploit that this IT security company is doing everybody a service by telling you about it. It doesn't mean that there aren't other ones that aren't known yet. Maybe the Army knows about them, and maybe that's what was used on Adam Bartholomew. He didn't come and say, oh, here's the reason Utah Valley Telephone Company reported a 2-second outage at exactly 12:22 p.m. and anybody using an AT&T cell phone experienced didn't have evidence like that. It's just a wise-ass quip because he was pissed off that I said he doesn't know the difference between a dot and a drone. So fuck that person. Anybody who wants to razz me, you're just wasting my time. And $5 a month is not the fee to waste my time and irritate me. That's the amount that generous people pay when they want to sponsor the show, because they enjoy what I say and they want to see this kind of research continue. So anyway, that's basically what I wanted to say. The other thing that's interesting is, you know, all these people, the quartering, and you got to also be aware when you want to come at me with nonsense, I got a lot of people doing that for the past 9 years. So even though you might be in your house watching me here on YouTube or X or Patreon or Subscribestar or any of the other channels, just be aware, I got a lot of people coming at me with nonsense. So if you've got nonsense, you know, some other guy was like, it's just nitpicking, little tiny things. What I'm looking for is people who look at this thesis in totality and say, no, there's a fundamental flaw here. That's not what happened. Charlie Kirk was not shot from behind. That is not 3 images of projectile coming towards his head just before he receives a fatal injury. This is something totally different, and here's the explanation. Here's the other thing I wanted to say. A lot of people love to say Occam's razor. Occam's razor. It had to be Occam's razor, Jason. You're an idiot. Occam's razor, the simplest thing is that a transgender furry was on the building shooting a .30-06 rifle at him, and it ricocheted off his chest, and that's the simplest thing. But those people don't understand what Occam's razor actually says. It doesn't say the simplest thing is what happened, because if that were true, it would be Charlie Kirk gives a speech at the college, he goes to lunch, and he goes home. What happened was the guy was murdered in front of everybody's eyes, and we're presented with all of this conflicting and bizarre evidence. So what Occam's razor actually says is the simplest answer that accounts for all of the available evidence is the most likely solution. So if you aren't accounting for all of the available evidence, then you're not even anywhere near the answer. You're not even ready to take out the razor. So I hope people have enjoyed this little explanation of the various pains in the ass who surface to razz me on the internet. Thanks to everybody who is sponsoring the evidence bounty at crowdsourcethetruth.org, and to people who sponsor the show on subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and on X Premium when you subscribe to me at JG_CSTT. Have a great day, everybody. Got a lot of interesting broadcasts coming up today, so stay with me.